The reason you wake up at 2 a.m. has nothing to do with age. After 70, it is your cortisol spiking at night when it should be dropping completely. And what you drink in the hours before bed plays a bigger role in that than you probably realize. These 8 drinks calm your cortisol and stop the 2 a.m. wake-ups, so you finally sleep through the night and actually feel rested the next day. Number 8. Tart cherry juice. You probably think of tart cherry juice as just another juice, something healthy with antioxidants, maybe. But you have no idea that tart cherry juice contains natural melatonin, the exact same hormone your body produces to signal sleep time. And unlike melatonin supplements that are synthetic and often hit your system all at once, the melatonin in tart cherry juice works with your body's natural rhythm rather than against it. When you drink tart cherry juice in the evening, the melatonin it contains signals your brain that it is time to prepare for sleep. That signal helps your cortisol start dropping the way it should. Your body recognizes the melatonin as a natural sleep cue and begins the cascade of hormonal changes that lower cortisol and prepare you for deep sleep. Research has confirmed that tart cherry juice drinkers report falling asleep faster and experiencing fewer nighttime wake-ups. The effect is gradual but cumulative. After a few weeks of consistent use, most people notice a clear difference in how easily they fall asleep and how deeply they sleep. After 70, your body produces less melatonin naturally, the pineal gland that makes it becomes less responsive as you age. That declining melatonin production is one of the reasons sleep becomes more difficult and cortisol stays elevated longer at night. Tart cherry juice provides the melatonin your body used to make on its own, but now struggles to produce in adequate amounts. If you find yourself lying awake unable to fall asleep, even though you feel tired, low melatonin levels combined with elevated cortisol is very likely what is happening. Tart cherry juice addresses both by providing the melatonin your body is missing and supporting the hormonal cascade that lowers cortisol. Drink 8 ounces of pure, unsweetened tart cherry juice about 30 minutes to an hour before bed. The unsweetened version is important because added sugar will spike your blood sugar and work against the sleep you are trying to improve. If the taste is too strong, you can dilute it with water. Give it at least 2 weeks of consistent nightly use before evaluating whether you notice a difference in your sleep. The next drink on this list works through a completely different mechanism, but the results for cortisol and sleep are equally powerful. Number 7. Kefir. You probably think of kefir as just a yogurt drink for your digestion. That is part of it. But here is what nobody tells you. The bacteria living in your kefir have a direct line of communication to your brain. That communication affects whether your cortisol stays high or drops the way it should at night. It sounds strange, but it is absolutely real. When you drink kefir, the bacteria in it get to work in your gut. They produce chemicals called GABA and serotonin. Think of these as calming signals. These chemicals travel directly from your gut to your brain and tell it to quiet down and lower cortisol. It is like your gut bacteria are sending calm messages to your brain all night long. When the bacteria are healthy, the messages are strong. When they are out of balance, the messages get weak and your brain stays alert instead of sleeping. After 70, your gut microbiome naturally becomes less diverse. The beneficial bacteria that support calming neurotransmitter production decline. That shift in your gut bacteria has downstream effects on your brain chemistry that show up as elevated cortisol and disrupted sleep. Kefir directly restores some of that bacterial diversity, and with it, the calming signals your brain needs to lower cortisol at night. If you have noticed changes in your digestion as you have gotten older, combined with worse sleep, your gut microbiome shifting is very likely connected to both. The bacteria in kefir address that shift directly, and the benefits often appear within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent use. Drink 4 to 6 ounces of plain unsweetened kefir about an hour before bed. Plain is important because sweetened versions will spike your blood sugar and disrupt the cortisol-lowering effect. If the taste is too strong or tangy for you, you can mix it with a small amount of honey or cinnamon to improve the flavor without adding much sugar. Give it at least 4 weeks of consistent use because probiotic benefits build gradually as your gut bacteria shift toward a healthier balance. The next drink is one you have probably walked past in a grocery store without realizing what it could do for your sleep and cortisol. Number 6. Ashwagandha warm milk. Ashwagandha is an herb that has been used for thousands of years in traditional medicine, specifically for calming the nervous system and supporting sleep. Modern research has confirmed what traditional medicine always knew. Ashwagandha contains compounds that directly reduce cortisol production and help your body manage the stress response that keeps cortisol elevated at night. When you drink ashwagandha mixed into warm milk, two things are happening at once. The ashwagandha itself is reducing cortisol production in your body. At the same time, the warm milk is signaling to your nervous system that it is time to wind down for sleep. Together, they work much more powerfully than either one alone. When you take ashwagandha consistently, you will notice lower cortisol levels and significantly better sleep within a few weeks. The effect builds gradually as the healing compounds accumulate in your system. After 70, your body's stress response system becomes more reactive. Your adrenal glands produce cortisol more readily in response to triggers that would have had less effect when you were younger. Ashwagandha helps regulate that overactive stress response by literally reducing how much cortisol your adrenal glands produce when they get the signal to activate. It essentially dampens the volume on your stress response system. If you find yourself feeling stressed or anxious in the evening, even without a clear reason, your baseline cortisol may be staying elevated. Ashwagandha directly addresses that elevated baseline by supporting your body's natural cortisol regulation. Many people report feeling noticeably calmer within the first week of consistent use. Mix 300 to 500 milligrams of ashwagandha powder into 8 ounces of warm milk about an hour before bed. You can use regular dairy milk, almond milk, or any milk you prefer. The ashwagandha powder has an earthy taste that blends well into warm milk. Give it at least 3 to 4 weeks of consistent nightly use as ashwagandha builds in effectiveness over time rather than working immediately. The next drink on this list is probably something you have never heard of, but it has thousands of years of proven use for calming your nervous system and lowering cortisol. Number 5. Tulsi Holy Basil Tea. Tulsi is also called holy basil, and it is a plant that has been used in India for over 5,000 years, specifically to support calm and reduce stress. Modern research has confirmed that Tulsi works on your cortisol levels and your sleep in similar ways to ashwagandha. Tulsi contains compounds that reduce cortisol production and support your body's ability to manage the stress response that keeps you awake at night. When you drink Tulsi tea, those compounds are absorbed into your bloodstream and begin working on your nervous system within minutes. They calm the part of your brain that drives the stress response and cortisol production. Research comparing Tulsi to other herbal remedies for sleep found that Tulsi was equally effective as ashwagandha for reducing cortisol and improving sleep quality. After 70, the accumulation of years of stress has trained your nervous system to stay in a slightly elevated state of alert, even when there is no actual threat. Tulsi helps retrain that response by consistently signaling to your nervous system that it is safe to calm down. Over time, with regular use, your baseline cortisol drops and your nervous system becomes less reactive to stress triggers. If you lie awake at night with racing thoughts or feel like your body is on high alert, even though nothing is actually wrong, your nervous system is stuck in a stress response pattern. Tulsi addresses that at the root by calming the nervous system itself. Steep 1 teaspoon of dried tulsi leaves or 1 tulsi tea bag in 8 ounces of hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. Drink it about 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Tulsi has a slightly spicy herbal flavor that many people find pleasant and calming. Give it at least 2 weeks of consistent nightly use before evaluating results. The next drink is one you probably have in your kitchen already, but you are likely not using it for sleep and cortisol the way you should be. Number 4. Turmeric milk. Turmeric is a spice most people associate with joint pain and inflammation, which it does help with. What fewer people realize is that turmeric also has direct effects on cortisol and sleep through its anti-inflammatory properties. Chronic inflammation in the body signals your immune system that there is a threat and keeps cortisol elevated as part of the response to that perceived threat. When you reduce inflammation with turmeric, cortisol no longer has that signal telling it to stay elevated. When you drink turmeric milk, the curcumin in turmeric is absorbed into your bloodstream and begins reducing inflammation throughout your body, including in your nervous system. That reduction in inflammation allows cortisol to drop the way it should. Your body stops perceiving a threat, and your stress response quiets down. The anti-inflammatory effect is one of the most potent of any natural herb available. After 70, chronic low-level inflammation is one of the most common conditions affecting your sleep and cortisol levels. Years of lifestyle, diet, and environmental stress have built up inflammation in your tissues and your nervous system. That inflammation keeps your cortisol elevated as your immune system continues to signal that something is wrong even when nothing acute is actually happening. It becomes a background level of immune activation that disrupts sleep nightly. If you wake up at night with aching joints or muscle tension, that physical inflammation is likely connected to the elevated cortisol waking you up. Turmeric addresses both the inflammation and the cortisol it triggers. Many people report feeling noticeably less achy within the first week, while sleep improvements typically take 2 to 3 weeks to become apparent. Mix 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder into 8 ounces of warm milk along with a pinch of black pepper. Black pepper is important because it contains piperine, which increases the absorption of curcumin by up to 20 times. Without the black pepper, most of the curcumin passes through your system without being absorbed. You can add a small amount of honey to sweeten it if you prefer. Drink it about an hour before bed. Give it at least 3 weeks of consistent use as turmeric builds in effectiveness over time. The next drink is one that many people use for other reasons, but do not realize is also powerfully calming for cortisol and sleep. Number 3. Chamomile tea. Chamomile is one of the most researched herbal teas for sleep and anxiety. It contains compounds called flavonoids. Think of flavonoids as tiny keys that fit into locks in your brain. Those locks are the same ones that anxiety medications target, but chamomile does it naturally without the side effects. When chamomile binds to those locks, it sends a calming signal to your brain that lowers cortisol and stops the racing thoughts that keep you awake. When you drink chamomile tea in the evening, you are directly supporting your brain's ability to quiet down. The effect is gentle, but it builds. Regular chamomile drinkers find they fall asleep faster, sleep much more deeply, and wake far less frequently during the night. After 70, your brain's natural calming systems become less efficient. The receptors that respond to calming signals become less sensitive. Chamomile works by making those receptors more responsive and by providing external signals that support the calming your brain is struggling to produce on its own. If you find yourself lying awake with worries or racing thoughts that you cannot turn off, your brain's calming system needs support. Chamomile provides that support directly. Steep 1 chamomile tea bag or 1 teaspoon of dried chamomile flowers in 8 ounces of hot water for 5 to 10 minutes. Drink it about 30 to 45 minutes before bed. Chamomile has a mild apple-like flavor that most people find pleasant and soothing. Give it at least 2 weeks of consistent nightly use. The next drink is one you may already be drinking in the morning, but the timing and the way you prepare it matters enormously for nighttime cortisol. Number 2. Green tea. Green tea is rich in a compound called L-theanine. Think of L-theanine as a natural calming chemical. It has been shown in research to reduce cortisol and help your brain stay calm without making you drowsy. L-theanine works by increasing something called GABA activity in your brain. GABA is the same calming chemical that anxiety medications target, but L-theanine does it naturally without the side effects or the risk of becoming dependent on it. The problem with green tea for sleep is that it also contains caffeine, which does the opposite. Caffeine stimulates cortisol production and keeps you alert. So if you want the calming benefits of L-theanine for evening without the caffeine keeping you awake, you need decaffeinated green tea. Decaffeinated green tea gives you all the L-theanine for cortisol reduction without the caffeine that would work against your sleep. After 70, your body processes caffeine more slowly than it did when you were younger. Caffeine consumed in the afternoon can still be affecting your cortisol and sleep at bedtime. That is why for evening cortisol support, decaffeinated green tea is the right choice, even though you lose some of the antioxidant benefits that come with the caffeine in regular green tea. If you have been drinking regular green tea in the evening thinking it was helping your sleep, the caffeine in it may actually be working against you. Switching to decaffeinated green tea removes that barrier while keeping the L-theanine that lowers cortisol. Steep 1 decaffeinated green tea bag in 8 ounces of hot water for 3 to 5 minutes. Drink it about 1 to 2 hours before bed. The timing matters because L-theanine takes about 30 minutes to 45 minutes to reach peak levels in your blood. Drinking it early enough ensures it is working at full strength when you are trying to sleep. Give it at least 2 weeks of consistent nightly use. And now we come to number 1. The drink with the most research, the most consistent results, and the one that addresses the most common underlying cause of nighttime cortisol spikes in adults over 70. Number 1. Magnesium water. Magnesium water is simply magnesium powder mixed into water. And it sits at number 1 because magnesium deficiency is one of the most common and most correctable causes of elevated nighttime cortisol in older adults. Research has found that up to 80% of adults over 70 are deficient in magnesium. That deficiency means your adrenal glands are producing cortisol without their most important control mechanism. Magnesium is directly involved in regulating the system that produces cortisol. When magnesium is low, that system runs unchecked. When you drink magnesium water, the magnesium is absorbed into your bloodstream and begins working immediately on your nervous system. It calms your stress response, reduces the excitability of your nerves, and most importantly, it helps your adrenal glands regulate cortisol production properly. Without adequate magnesium, no matter what else you try, your adrenal glands will continue producing cortisol more readily than they should. It is like trying to drive a car with a stuck accelerator. No amount of gentle pressure on the brake will fully compensate if the brake pedal itself is weak. After 70, your kidneys excrete more magnesium than they did when you were younger. Many common medications, including blood pressure medications and diuretics, deplete magnesium further. Even if you eat reasonably well, your magnesium levels are very likely lower than they need to be for your body to regulate cortisol properly at night. That magnesium deficiency is often the missing piece for people who have tried everything else without lasting results. If you have been waking up consistently at the same time every night and nothing you have tried has made a real difference, the magnesium deficiency driving your cortisol spike has probably never been directly addressed. It is the most common underlying cause and the one most likely to produce noticeable results relatively quickly. A simple blood test can confirm whether your magnesium levels are low, and if they are, supplementation becomes one of the highest priority things you can do for your sleep. Mix 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium glycinate powder into 8 ounces of water or warm milk about 1 to 2 hours before bed. Magnesium glycinate specifically is important because it includes glycine, which also supports sleep. Other forms of magnesium work, but the glycinate form has the strongest research for sleep and cortisol specifically. Start with the lower dose and increase gradually if needed. You will likely notice it is easier to fall asleep within the first week. Within 2 to 3 weeks, the nighttime waking should start becoming noticeably less frequent, and when it does happen, it should be easier to fall back asleep. Give it a full 4 to 6 weeks of consistent nightly use before deciding if it is working because magnesium builds up in your system over time. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these 8 drinks are you going to try first? Or are you already drinking any of them and noticing a difference in your sleep? Tell us in the comments below. We read every single one. And here is the thing worth remembering. You do not need to try all 8 at once. Start with one. The one that feels most accessible to you or the one that addresses what you think is most likely causing your cortisol spike. Add it to your evening routine consistently for at least 2 to 3 weeks. Then add another one if you want. Small, consistent habits are what create real changes in your cortisol and sleep, not trying to change everything at once. If you start with magnesium water, you will probably see the fastest results because magnesium addresses the most common underlying deficiency after 70. But every person is different. Your body will tell you which drink is working by how you feel. Better sleep, earlier bedtime, easier wake-ups, better mood the next day. Those are the signs that you are addressing your cortisol correctly. If you found this helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe so you never miss what we cover next. Thanks for watching.